All right. How is everybody doing so far tonight? Welcome. Nice to see a full room here tonight. My name is Ken Minot. I am the president of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. And on behalf of MVRCA, the board of directors, and the selection committee, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2025 Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. As always, I like to say that this is an event that's been months in the planning, but many, many more years in the making. Tonight, we welcome 6 new members into this select company of men and women who have made a significant and lasting impact on motorsports here in the state of Maine and beyond. Each of these 6 deserving inductees have blazed their own individual trail to get them here in this room tonight. One of them is a passionate historian who embodies the very vision of MVRCA to preserve its history. One is a champion driver who, with his family, has etched a legacy of success at one of Maine's most historic tracks and is still doing it today. One is a championship driver who thrilled fans across Maine and New Hampshire and even across the pond in England, and then went on to work as a crew chief, race director, chassis builder, and much, much more. One is a leader and innovator in our sport, taking his mechanical knowledge and craftsmanship from his home state of Maine down to the motherland of NASCAR. One is a crew chief who honed his own craft, helping lead one of the most successful racing careers in Maine history. And one is a championship driver and car owner who made it into the top 3 levels of NASCAR, a place where very few Mainers have had the privilege of reaching. Tonight, your journey has brought to you to this room among your family and friends as we honor you as new members of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame. Also tonight, we'll be handing out the annual President's Award, and we'll be recognizing the 5 finalists for Maine Driver of the Year 2025. I want to thank the Augusta Civic Center once again for hosting us tonight. We got a delicious buffet dinner we'll be serving up here in a little bit. Also, I want to take a moment to thank a few other people as well. I want to thank Sandy Haley, who is doing our photography once again tonight, right down here. So smile for Sandy. We have Brandon Simmons in the back, who is videoing this event tonight, and hopefully we'll have that online for you guys to watch. Unfortunately showed up a little bit late to do their junior usher duties, but I still wanted to point them out for being willing to help us out tonight. We have Jace and Sloan Pastore, wherever you guys are, right down there, okay? Next, I want to thank Mainly Awards for their beautiful hardware they're handing out tonight to our recipients. I want to thank the officers, board of directors, and advisory members of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association for all their hard work, and those who helped out to put this evening together, including the Hall of Fame Selection Committee. Thank you guys very much. If you know of someone who you feel belongs in the Hall of Fame, you can go to our website to get a nomination form, or we do have some on each of the tables as well, so be sure to grab one and fill it out. And finally, I'd like to thank all the members of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. It's through your support and generous donations that enable us to fulfill our mission to preserve and present the history of this sport we all love so much by putting on this banquet, by maintaining the mobile museum, and by storing and cataloging all the artifacts and memorabilia in our possession. We recently purchased a permanent storage container that will eliminate long-term rental expenses and enable us to expand our storage capabilities. So thank you all for doing your part to help us do that this year. And also one other special thank you when it comes to contributors of MVRCA. One of our Hall of Famers, Dana Graves, couldn't be here tonight, but he sent Pete with an envelope with a nice donation of $500 in the name of Dana and his wife, Dottie. So thank you guys on behalf of all of us. So let's get things started with our first award of the night. This is the President's Award, which is presented to a person or persons who have gone above and beyond the call of duty to ensure the success of our organization. One of the biggest things we struggle with MVRCA is to have boots on the ground, people who are willing to and able to give up their time and effort to make appearances, attend meetings. These promotional appearances take up a lot of time, but this is a guy who is always one of the very first to step up and say, sure, I'll help. What can I do? Just tell me what to do. I'll help you out any way I can. His enthusiasm and willingness to see this organization succeed is contagious at best. And if there's any place or crowd that he can tell a story, you know that's where he'll be. Whether that story is true or not, that'll be up to you guys to decide. But it's my pleasure to present the 2025 President's Award to Mr. Dodo Brockman. We don't have time for a story, so.
Goodwin Hanover took 45 minutes, someone to break his record. Thank you very much. I'm totally surprised, really. You know, I enjoy the club. We do a lot of things together. If it wasn't for the other people that are in our club that help do things, you know, Frankie and I do the shows and a couple other guys, but we enjoy it. And we enjoy seeing all you people. And we plan on doing it more and more. And thank you very much. How much is the check for? Thank God loves you. Thank you.
On Dodo.
Before we bring up our guest speaker, I wanted to take a moment to recognize some members of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame that are here in attendance tonight. So if they would stand when I call their name, please take a moment to be recognized. From the class of 2007, we have Stan Reserve. From the class of 2009, Dick McCabe. From the class of 2013, Mike D'Amico Jr. From the class of 2014, Bruce Elder. Also from the class of 2014, Mike Rowe. From the class of 2015, Mike Johnson. From the class of 2016, Pete Silva. From the class of 2019, Lomer Pelletier. From the class of 2021, Bob Harrison. And from the class of 2024, Chuck LaChance. And also from the class of 2024, Don Letard. I have one more to introduce, and he happens to be our guest speaker tonight. He's a gentleman who, regardless of how far this sport has taken him, he remains one of us. A fierce competitor with a relentless drive to reach his goals, making him a winner at every level of the sport that he has taken part in. At the same time, an articulate gentleman whose knowledge and passion for this sport is undeniable. And now he's returning back home to take on a new challenge as a track owner. Welcome to the dark side. Would you please welcome member of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, class of 2019, Mr. Ricky Craven.
This is home day. My God, I've seen some people I haven't seen for years. Some of them look great. Some of them look like me. I'm really grateful to be home. And Ken reached out to me a while back and asked if I could come and be a part of this. And I had another event somewhere else. But the more I thought about it, I said, to hell with it. And I wiggled my way out of it. And I wanted to be here primarily because at 59 3/4, I'm seeing people in our fraternity disappear. Bobby Gahan just recently. But we're all affected by it, and we all see it, and we all feel it. And I thought also about when I was inducted, which I couldn't remember when it was. That's part of being almost 60. But 2019 or 20. 19. 19, thank you. Yeah. What are you doing later? I can read. Bob, you were with me. But part of that is when I see people like Bob Bailey, I get stopped in my tracks and I think, my God, he's got equity in me. That's my theme tonight. He's got equity in me. His father-in-law, Louis Stewart, had equity in me. I rode here tonight with Stan Meserve and Diane Meserve, and there's nobody in the room that has more equity than they have in me. Okay, so that's part of this equation. You know, I'm bumping up on 60. People are disappearing. They've all touched my life. I'm also going into another chapter that I didn't expect, in full disclosure. And I need to reconnect with these people. This is long before I realized I would be buying a Speedway. Brought to you by Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. But somebody else that's got equity, Lisa, my sweetheart's with me. Lisa would come out to Newburgh when I was 13 years old and hop on the back of my Arctic Cat. And she was beautiful then, and I discovered that, she kept coming back, but I discovered the faster I went, the tighter she held on. So as I said to Steve Berry, I gave her one hell of a ride every weekend. And but Lisa's part of my life, has been a part of my life, but there's 40 years in between where we didn't see one another. And so when I got inducted, I had just gone through a divorce. If you get the chance to do that, don't. I mean, but wonderful, wonderful lady. We're on the other side of it. But I honestly wasn't the best version of me when I got inducted. I drove the Bud car for Rick Hendrick at the highest level of motorsports. And I didn't drink. Okay? That's the level of focus I had. And I had it for 50 years. So that's a big part of why I had the success I've had. I am approaching 50, and I decide I'm going to have a halfway party. What's that mean? You all should understand that. Halfway. Because I made up my mind early in life I was going to live to be 100. I really did. This is how I'm hardwired, okay? So I said, hell, I'm going to have a halfway party up at Moosehead. And I didn't drink the first 50 years of my life, but boy, I made up for it on that weekend. And so I came and I was inducted, and there's two people, Stan Meserve and Louis Stewart, who had enormous equity in me. And I know Stan knows how much I appreciate all he's done for me. And Diane's been along for the ride and played a big part in it. But I'm not convinced that Louis Stewart ever realized how much it meant to me. See, the problem with my life is from the age of 20 to 40, for certain, I traveled at the speed of light. It was incredible. I had an amazing life. But I really didn't get to enjoy it because there was so much required to pull it off. And we all have pressure in life, but I'll tell you that you want pressure. You're racing against Earnhardt and Gordon and Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott. You're racing against Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson, the Labonte brothers. I mean, week after week after week. And somewhere along the line, you say, well, I gotta make sure Stan and Diane know how much I appreciate them. I gotta make sure Louis Stewart knows how much I appreciate him, and his beautiful wife, Virginia. And of course, they both passed. And Bob was a big part of that equation. I look at Timmy Brackett. Timmy Brackett, one hell of a racer. And that's what this whole thing's about. I can look through the room, and I could go on forever, and I promise I won't because it's not my night. But I'm sharing with you straight from the gut where I started, where I went, and where I am now. Timmy Brackett is a winner. And if he had the same equipment I had, he probably would have roughed me up because he was always the real deal. I look down through this list and I see Mark Wentworth. I would have liked to have had him on my team. He was with the Irish Angel. One of my childhood heroes, Dick McCabe, was a beneficiary of it, but Dick McCabe in his own right was one hell of a racer. Dick McCabe, Mike Rowe, Dave Dion, Robbie Crouch, Joe Bessie, Mike Rowe. I said that twice, I know. But Mike deserves to be mentioned twice, okay? Those guys were the early innings of me crafting my ability, my talent. And when you think about, like Dick, who I got to see earlier, and I always had the highest regard for him, even though we had a couple of years where I had my moment, and we didn't necessarily see eye to eye, but I always respected him. And in full disclosure, I didn't get Dick McCabe in his prime. If I raced against Dick McCabe in his prime, I think he could have roughed me up too, because he was the real deal, hell of a racer, one of my favorites. But congratulations to Tim Brackett, Mark Wentworth, Steve. All of us are the beneficiary of you, like all of what you've contributed. And we do this, and kind of like I'm describing, we don't ever pause to digest it. But when you have someone like Steve, who's a historian, and his contributions are long-lasting, deservingly so, he's being celebrated tonight. Rex Garrett, I spent more time with Rex Garrett in North Carolina than I did in Maine. I mean, he is a hell of a lot of fun, great personality. Congratulations to his family. And Willie, why'd you cut your hair? Okay, the boss. Listen, I wanted to have hair like you when I was younger, but I was doing this corporate thing. You know, they had this image, but I got it now. And there's some people suggesting I might get a trim. I say, ain't happening. I got the Willie Elliott look. As I said earlier, you know, I've watched you from afar. Class act, hell of a racer, but a cool dude. Congratulations. Yeah. I see Donnie Letarte peeking over the back there. Donnie's got some equity in me. I told him I drove the hell out of his car up in Quebec City. Crouch beat me by this much. I was just a rookie. But that truck arm car you had back in the early 80s was a hot rod. The Stan Meserve cars were maybe a little tiny bit faster at Unity, but I said that because he's sitting behind you, see. NRP was pretty good too. Yeah, and then last but not least, my buddy Joe Bessie. Like Mike Rowe, you know, when you race against people, you don't fall in love with them. You know, you're going to have trouble. You're going to agree to disagree, and it could get ugly a time or two. But Joe and I raced for wins. Mike and I raced for wins. And there's not two guys that I would put on a higher level in terms of racing successfully, but doing it right. I mean, racing right to the edge, but not crossing the line. And I told Stan on the way down here, I said, the guy that was the most remarkable, was Harry Gadd. I mean, Harry would give you this much to his right side and leave you this much to the wall. You never got another quarter inch, lap after lap, battling for the lead. But he also never squeezed you. He just had that level of talent, but also dignity and class. And that's how I feel about Joe Bessie. Congratulations, buddy. Yeah, good day. I know we got Driver of the Year. Has that happened yet? Not happened yet. Okay. So good luck to all of you. It's quite an honor. I just want to acknowledge that on the backs of that, a lot of people have equity in you, right? Like, you know that, you feel it. But they're the two guys that I want to acknowledge right now in my own little way, and then we'll get on to the real stars and talent, are Stan Deserve and Louis Stewart. And I'm going to do it a little bit uniquely. Now, Dick's here, and I know, Dick, you know Louis Stewart really well. And, of course, Stan and his son-in-law, Bob Bailey. Somewhere around the mid-'80s, Stan said, look, I'm going to build you a car. Like, you've gone as far as you can go. It's time for you to tour. And I didn't believe it until it happened. And he built me a hot rod. And he said, but I don't have an engine. That's on you. And I honestly came up empty. They were racing V6s at the time. He said, I brokered a deal. You got to go to Cundy's Harbor, and you got to meet a guy named Louis Stewart. And I knew him because a Bangor guy, Harvey Sprague, drove for him. And Louis was a man's man. If you think about the Mariner on the throat lozenge package, I don't remember which one it is, but like 6'6", and white, bearded, or just gruff, guy you don't want to piss off. That's Louis Stewart. But he's also got a heart of gold. And I travel down there, and when I get in, he's got a sink full of lobsters. Why? Because he's a lobsterman. Every one of those guys are tough guys. He says, you need some engines? And I said, yeah. And he said, all right, we'll go to Oxford, and we'll see how it goes. We get 3 or 4 days later, we arrive. I'm there early, I think, and Louis is waiting for me. And he says, all right, kid, you ready to go? And I said, I am. And he says, well, there's 2 things we need to address before you drive my car. Number 1, you drive the shit out of it. And I said, I can do that. And he says, and you don't take any shit from anybody. And I said, I can, as long as you're at the window net when I come in. And he says, I'll be there. So he gives me a business card, and I don't know if you remember this, but so I'm bumping up on 60, and say I'm, 17 years old. He gives me a business card. It's the biggest business card I ever saw. He said, from here on out, if you need me, you call me. On the back of the business card, you ready? I didn't bring my readers. On the back of Louis Stewart's business card, it says, and I've carried this with me my entire life. I've given it out 10,000 times. This is the kind of thing that you do for young people to help steer them, to help galvanize them, but also to maybe to humble them a little bit, and to have equity in them. So it read, when you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what the man has to say. For it isn't your father or mother or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the man staring back from the glass. He's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest. For he's with you clear to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. Now, I didn't come here to recite poetry, okay? But this is a profound thing coming from Louis Stewart, which, doesn't quite fit, does it, Dick? But what we know about Louis is a man of principle. He's a good man. And what he's saying is, you do what you say you're going to do. He says, if you want to buy back your car that you loved, you can afford to do it. If you want to buy back a home or a motorcycle, bicycle, whatever, you can afford it. But what you can't afford to buy back is your integrity. Okay? So this is a teenager, and that's quite an impression. And I'll tell you, growing up in Newburgh, Maine, I had never read any poetry. On the other side, I don't know exactly why Stan invested in me other than he saw himself. Simple enough. Unity Raceway, Speedway 95, Wiscasset, every step of the way. He never, ever deviated. And when I look back on my life, I've had hundreds of those. Really, I've had so many people invest in my life. But not to the level of Stan and Diane. Not when I needed it most. So I'm saying all this, and I shared all this with you because I've gone full circle. I truly am home. And I bought 32 acres in Bangor, Maine, Herman, Maine, because I want to invest in all of us. I'm also having a hell of a good time. It's who I am at the core, and in a different sort of way, it's my way of giving back. In conclusion, Stan, Diane, in August, we're going to have 128 lap race, and it's going to be the Stan Missouri Classic for you. And thank you all. We're celebrating a lot of great drivers, even better, a lot of great people tonight, and it's great to be home.
Once again, Ricky Craven, thank you very much. Welcome home. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to your host for the rest of the evening. He's the lead announcer at Lee USA Speedway and host in 1/3 of the popular Black Flag podcast. Please welcome to the stage Charlie Sanborn.
All right, so sorry to disappoint, but it's time for your second favorite redhead from Maine. As Ken said, my name is Charlie Sanborn. I am 1/3 of the Black Flag podcast. It is a pleasure to see all of you here today. My grandfather was a Marine. He was in Korea. My father was a Marine. He was in Desert Storm, Desert Shield in the 90s. So I'm a very yes ma'am, yes sir, Mr., Mrs. type of guy. So when, no offense, but when Mr. Craven was up here talking about crossing the line, you've all seen my body of work behind the wheel of a race car. I've had no problem crossing the line, which is probably why you've never seen me race on Sundays. So thank you for coming up here and doing what you do, Mr. Craven. We appreciate you and preserving what we love to do on our weekends here in the state of Maine. Now, I cannot express enough how cool this is for me and the opportunity to be asked year after year, this is now I think my 5th or 6th time up on the stage here for the Maine Vintage Race Car Association on behalf of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame to induct the next generation that we all get to observe and cherish forever. So I look around the room and in addition to, again, no offense, Mr. Craven, I see lots of you out there that as a kid, I had die casts in my room. I had autographs on the wall. I had hats hanging up that those were my prized possessions. And a lot of you who signed those autographs and had those die casts made and probably had to sign off on some sort of approval, you were a part of my childhood, whether you wanted to be or not. And on behalf of myself and my entire generation, just thank you. Thank you for what you all have done and continue to do to be a part of not only the history and the present, but also the future of everything that is motorsports in the state of Maine. Of the likes, not only with Mr. Craven as well too, but we see a legend out in the hallway here. I call him Mr. Rowe, but Mike Rowe, one of my favorite human beings of all time, primarily I would assume because I never had to race with you, but thank you for everything that you have done in the past and continue to do in the future as well too. Joe Bessie, also here. Whether you wanted to be or not, you're on my wall, you're on my diecast shelf there. So this is super cool for me. I am fangirling quite a bit, so just bear with me here. But to kick off the program, I'm sure you're already tired of hearing my voice, but I am going to introduce my future father-in-law, actually, who helped create my beautiful bride-to-be, Lindsay Walker. So we can get the ball rolling here with the 2025 Maine Vintage Race Car Association Driver of the Year Awards. I'm now going to introduce to you the one and only Dan Walker to be able to present those awards.
Oh, the sir and mister stuff. I want to, first off, thank you all for being here. Congratulations to all the incoming Hall of Famers. I want to thank Ken Minot for putting me in this spot following Craven. Thank you for that. Before we introduce to you the 5 finalists for this year's Driver of the Year, I want to take a moment and shout out to Timmy Brackett here and his family. We all know that Kyle and Vanna and Peyton and Emma have gone through some rough times, with the little girl's health. And you guys might not know everybody in this room, but I guarantee you everybody in this room is behind you and supporting you guys 100%. So we wish you guys all the best as you continue on your journey there. Also want to take a moment and give a shout out real quick to one of our drivers who suffered some serious injuries a few weeks back. Keep Cam Childs in your thoughts, him and his family. Support them any way you can. Cam is a racer, and he always will be, so keep Cam Childs and his family in your thoughts as well. So, since the very first of these Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame ceremonies, in 2004, the Maine Vintage Race Car Association has recognized Maine race car drivers as finalists for this race season's Driver of the Year award. Just making it as one of the Maine driver finalists is an outstanding accomplishment in itself, and it's time that we meet the 5 finalists. We'll first welcome the drivers to the stage to receive the finalist award, and after you have met all 5 of them, we'll announce the Maine Driver of the Year award for the 2025 race season. So first up is a young man who has won 4 or 5 major races this year, and he is the 2025 Oxford 250 champion. Your first finalist, welcome to the stage, Austin Terrace.
Where are we going? I guess we
Go with Charlie, I'll find you.
Yeah, we'll go like that. That's because I work. I can set that up. All right, so we're going to treat this a lot like a victory lane at any local short track here. Austin Terrace, obviously, you had an incredible 2025 season. Seems as though you were the guy to beat in the super late model ranks, not only for the Pro All-Star Series, but at Oxford Plains Speedway as well too. But obviously you didn't do it all by yourself, so who do you have to thank here tonight? Just kind of walk us through your 2025 season.
Yeah, no, like Ricky was saying, there's a lot of people that have equity in me, and I definitely couldn't do it without my mom, my dad, everybody else. I'm not very good at this whole public speaking thing. I'm super nervous, but we're gonna wade through it, and I just gotta thank everybody who went to the racetrack, everybody that helped me. We're kind of like a huge family, even though we don't get along, but I love being here, I love seeing everybody, and I gotta thank everybody that was at the racetrack all year long.
I mean, there's really nothing to be nervous about. There's only a few hundred people and several Oxford 250 wins in front of you here, so really no pressure at all. But obviously, you don't show up to the racetrack by yourself, so you have to thank there.
For sure. I mean, Harold Hawks and Dwayne Drayton are a huge part of it. Derek McConnell. I got probably the best fuel guy that I ever met, John Lazat Jr. He's here with me, and he was a huge part. My Uncle Joey ran the Jack and all the pit stop races, and so many of my friends, including Bobby. He changed tires for me a few times this year with a very special shirt he picked out. And yeah, I mean, Brandon Ernest, Jeff Taylor, huge parts of it. Rex Garrett, his daughters are here, and I'd like to welcome them, and 4 Rex, if they could get a round of applause, that would be nice. But yeah, that's about it.
Fair enough. You can quit shaking now. We'll go up to the next step.
Congratulations. All right, our next finalist comes to us as the 2025 Wiscasset Speedway Pro Stock Champion. Please welcome to the stage Nick Hinckley.
Thank you.
Come on down. I went out. There we go. Yeah, get on my pretty side here. There we go. Can't show the scar to everybody, you know. So we have the Wiscasset Weekly Pro Stock Series champion here, Nick Hinckley. Obviously, you're the man to beat at Maine's fastest oval. So what do you have to say here tonight? How cool is this for you?
What an opportunity. Hard to believe, right, looking at all the names down. And I remember being a young gun right now, and me and, I'd say I'm probably the oldest out of all of us, but it seemed like just yesterday we were one of the younger ones that were starting out. So first off, gotta thank you guys for putting the show on. Wiscasset Speedway, couldn't do it without Richard and Vanessa. My father, all the guys that helped me out, my wife, Alex, Brent, Brandon, Jay, Keith, all them guys that are there every week. You know, we're a little different than most, so we have all just volunteer help. We don't have, you know, nobody that's paid come help us out. It's all out of the love of the sport. So to get a shot at an opportunity like this, you gotta love it.
So really the biggest question, probably the most important one you're going to face all night here tonight is where's this trophy going to go?
Honestly, probably in my son's bedroom is where the trophy's gonna go. I'm one that, you know, I was, you know, half the names here that are getting inducted, right? I was that young kid up on the fence trying to get a trophy from him. So I make sure to give back any trophy I get, other than the super big ones that mean a lot. I give them to kids in the crowd. So this one's probably gonna stay on the mail, but for the future, yeah, I like to give back.
Fair enough. We'll send you right on over to Austin here, and we'll introduce the next person.
Our next Driver of the Year finalist for 2025 comes to us as the 2025 Oxford Plains Speedway Super Late Model Champion. Please welcome Scott McDaniel.
All right, Scott. So your 2025 Oxford Plains Speedway Super Late Model Champion Scott McDaniel here, the driver of always one of the prettiest race cars at the racetrack, the number 14 here. There's a lot to be said for a weekly championship, right? There's, you know, in that there's dedication. You got to be the guy that shows up every single week. You have to be there, you know, in the shop throughout the entire week as well too. For most people, this is a second job, right? So talk to us about your 2025 season and what this means to you. you've ever been to a race at the Oxford Plains Speedway, you know how hard it is to win. So we got one win this year, but you know, we had to take that big difficult handicap, and we were able to pass a lot of cars this year, and sort of proud of that. So obviously you weren't, you know, driving a truck by yourself, you weren't setting it up by yourself, you weren't slamming tires on by yourself here. So who do you have to thank? Mostly those 4 people sitting at that table right there: my dad, my mom, my Uncle Lee, and Mike Perry. They've been with me since I've been racing go-karts. So if you are able to pull off the big trophy over here, kind of stack that in comparison to your other prior accomplishments and where all these accolades and trophies are going to go now.
Probably right in the middle. It's just like I've never really honestly paid attention to what this organization does, and really kind of, it's amazing to see all the people that are in this room today, and even just being nominated for this is just amazing.
And that is exactly what it's all about. So here's your 2025 Oxford Plains Speedway Super Late Model Champion, Scott McKinnon. We'll give you an honor of all the other contestants.
Up next comes a very, very young man who secured the 2025 Granite State Pro Stock Series Championship this year in his first try. Please welcome from Windham, Maine, Cole Roby.
All right, come on down. So for those that don't know, out of the 5, I don't know if contestants is the right word, but 5 appointees to this big potential win here, Cole was the only one that came up to me for pre-screening of what the questions would be, so I'm going to take it completely out of so obviously you're a little nervous here. It's not like you've never been to victory lane, but there's only just a few hundred people here, a few Oxford 250 championships. NASCAR wins, no big deal, right? So, with this trophy now in your hand here, what does this mean to you? Talk to us about your season.
Yeah, you know, first off, sitting down over there, it does not look like there's this many people, but there's a lot of people in here, so it's a real honor to be up here and just look around and see all the great people and all the memories in this room and get to be able to hold one of these trophies.
So, this isn't the only trophy you're going to get here. Obviously, it's banquet season, it's big show season, as we like to call it here. You are going to take home the Granite State Pro Stock Series Championship trophy as well, too. So, obviously, you didn't do it by yourself. I know that your dad's a big part of that whole process for you here. So, talk to us about your number 29 car and everything that goes into that.
Yeah, my dad's a big part of that. That number 29 car would not go without him. Nor would it go without Ricky Rolfe and Jamie Rulo behind the scenes in the shop and helping me day in and day out on that car, so we can get to the shop, get to the track, and make that car go fast to be able to win that championship.
Well, there you go, folks. Your Granite State Pro Stock Series champion for the year 2025, number 29, Cole Roby. We are now going to get lovely contestant number 4 in line here, and I think we have one more, right?
We have one more. This gentleman comes to us for the second consecutive year as a finalist for the award. He is the 2025 Star Speedway 350 Super Modified Series champion from Windham, Maine, open wheel representation. Please welcome Bobby Timmons.
I'll peel that off the trophy and we'll see which one of you guys goes for that. How's that?
I haven't worn them since this event last year.
Come on, Bob. Get your right next to me here. So, for those of you unfortunate enough to spend your Mondays and or Tuesdays listening to the Black Flag podcast, you now have 66.6% of that show right next to each other here on stage. So either you're welcome or I'm sorry. I don't know what I owe you at this point in time. But I was going to kick the show off with asking a poll to the audience of who is wearing the same exact outfit as last year. Perfect, beautiful. That's 2 of us. Who else went to Kohl's across the street beforehand or spent a good 45 minutes on your hands and knees digging through the bottom part of your closet? Because this is not what, there it is. All right, beautiful. So here's the only guy that races without fenders. He also decided that it was a good idea to strap a wing not only on the top of the car, but also on front. Your race is super modified, so talk to us about your 2025 season. You did something pretty cool this year.
Yeah, I told all these guys earlier, I used to race Super Late Models, shout out Scott and Vicky, they're here tonight at Rex's table. But I told them, I said, guys, there's way more fun options of driving race cars than what you guys are doing. The Super Late models are cool, great opportunity, but I've definitely found home being able to build stuff. You know, my grandfather raced sprint cars at Peterage, my dad raced supers all over. We had a really good year. We picked up 3 wins at 8 races at Star, picked up track championship there, which we were lucky enough to win one of the big block series last year, but this year's definitely meant more. No pun intended, it's a lot harder of a battle at Star Speedway to win the titles, so really.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, definitely.
Nothing specific whatsoever. So obviously you're a guy, and I've kind of teased it a little bit throughout everybody else. You bring home a lot of trophies throughout the year. You've also gotten to the point where seconds and thirds, the kid in the second row can have that, right? So do you get to keep this one? Do the Cats get to at least eat off of it, or what are they doing with this one?
It's going to go right next to the one from last year. These are really cool. This is different. This is truly an honor, honestly, to be up here in front of all these people. I mean, like you touched on earlier, there's people in this room that were part of our childhood, whether they wanted to be or not. Congratulations to all the finalists. I remember the first day I met Joe Bessie. I was 7 or 8. Scott and Vicky brought me to Wisconsin. Snuck me in the pits. I was a little young, but met Joe that day. I raced with him. All the other ones. Rex, I have a good thought for Rex. Rex and my dad are really good friends, and Rex is one of my favorite humans on this earth. So just really cool to be up here and be a part of it. And just Cole's right. There's a lot more people in here than there was.
To this day, I actually still have a Ricky Craven hat from the Winston that's signed. It's a whole like plastic thing, so thank you for that. You didn't know that you did that at the time, but thank you, appreciate that. But really, this is the most important question I'll probably ask with the entire evening here. So, all of your racing stuff aside, that doesn't matter, right? So you were actually part of the tire changing crew for the Oxford 250 this year for that guy in the suit that he bought yesterday at the mall. Tuesday, sorry. But you had your own wardrobe choice that night. Talk to us how that all came about.
It's a funny joke. I'm a cat guy. I got 2 cats. I found a t-shirt on Instagram of a cat smoking a cigarette that looks like one of my cats, and figured Austin was going to have a good night that night, so I wore that t-shirt. And that's the only time in my life that a 22-year-old child has made me cry. So.
There you have it, folks. Your 2025 Star Speedway 350 Super Champion, the number 13 of Bobby Timmons. More importantly, a cat dad too.
You guys want to move over there with Charlie?
I can replace my ugly mug over there.
So, I'm going to read my thing. Go case off when I'm ready. I like it. All right. So, now it's time to meet and congratulate the 2025 Maine Driver of the Year, as voted on by the executive directors and advisors of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association, whose votes are tabulated on a points basis. You met the finalists, and now by vote of the association's 20-member voting panel, the Maine Driver of the Year award is presented to...
Drum roll, anybody?
Austin Terrace.
So for those that haven't touched this yet, very solid. I think they just cut this down this morning and shaped it into this trophy here. So you have a lot of cool trophies. You won the Oxford 250 this year alone. You have a very sharp suit now as well too. So talk to us about what this means to you.
It definitely means the world. I mean, to even be considered as one of the finalists, that's an honor, but to win it is super cool. I hope you guys don't do tech later, but...
Nothing specific, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be on the stage. I'm not going to make you sit through a long speech. I tried to write one, it didn't work, but it may say Driver of the Year, but I'm taking this kind of Team of the Year, because without all of my guys and girls, we definitely wouldn't be here, and this goes to all of them.
There you have it. Your 2025 Maine Vintage Race Car Association Driver of the Year, number 29, the one and only Austin Terrace. Part of every single year for the Maine Vintage Race Car Association, we do like to acknowledge those that we have lost the year prior. Obviously, the entire point of what the Maine Vintage Race Car Association is to preserve the history of racing in the state of Maine. Whether that be, buying racetracks, thank you, or owning race cars, or driving race cars, or having an incredible social media page, or just literally remembering those that have done it before us, because that is so incredibly crucial for why we are even here tonight. And as a little redheaded kid that grew up in Scarborough, about 2.6 miles away from the racetrack that was there, I thank all of you. That is the entire reason for my being. It's the reason that my personality is the way that it is. It's the reason that I know how to drive a standard vehicle. It's the reason why I know how to love and get my heart broken, or how to say hello or handshake with somebody that I've never met before. It's because of the groundwork that all of you have laid before me, and that is so incredibly important for me, not only as a little redheaded kid, again, that grew up in Scarborough just down the street from the Speedway, but now as a father of a 2.5-year-old who gets to do the same things because of those of you that keep this entire spirit alive. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But as we take time to recognize excellence during the 2025 season and honor our new Hall of Fame class, we also pause for a moment to honor those members of the Hall of Fame that we lost over this past year, plus 2 dedicated contributors to the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. And we do have a slideshow here. So if we could all please, in recognition, remember Bob Knowles, Kennison, Chummy Brown, Billy Harnish, Rodney Chink Maynard, Maine Vintage Race Car Association contributor Kenny Lane, and also the Maine Vintage Race Car Association board member Mike Downing. These are the people that have, again, laid the groundwork for everything that we know and love, and have shaped our personalities and traits of who we are as beings. So it is so incredibly crucial that we remember those of the past, but currently the present, and obviously we support all of those moving on to the future as well too. And before I get too carried away here, the last couple of years, I have actually had the incredible privilege and honor to have my dinner here for the Hall of Fame event with the one and only Phyllis Walsingham. And for those of you that know, that's a wild conversation every time. So just on behalf of myself, I'm a dude, right? I get to race cars, I get to be in front of TV, I get to have a microphone, I get to have cameras in my faces, and I get to say cool stuff. But really the superstars of all of us that get to do cool stuff are all the girlfriends and wives and moms to all the little ones that we get to be superstars in front of, because the documentaries aren't made about mom at home who has to literally make a human being and then take care of that on our behalf while we get to be rock stars on TV. So thank you to each and every single one of you ladies out there that get to do really the cool stuff for all of us who are the ones that honestly get all the credit. It's not fair, it really isn't. So shout out to all of you. Lindsay May, I love you very much. Thank you again. So, and then before we get too carried away as well too, we do have another member of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, class of 2019, who was somehow left out in the big spread that we left, or mentioned the evening off this morning. But Bob Bailey is actually here in attendance and would like to actually come up on the stage and say a few words. So if we could all just give a round of applause to Bob Bailey real quick, who wants to just have a couple of quick words.
I'm not much of a speaker, but Ricky didn't tell you the whole story. We started out racing cars with Earl Jones at Wiscasset and some other places. And then we went to Harvey Sprague, and of course, we had a construction company, so Monday mornings, the first thing I had to do, the car had to be ready for the next Saturday. So this went on for several years, and all of a sudden my father-in-law comes down, and he says, well, I had a visitor last night.
I'm like, oh, really? Who was that? Well, it was this red-headed guy from up in Newburgh, and he wants to drive a race car for us. And I'm like, you know, what kind of race car? Well, we got a deal going with Stan, or he's got a deal going with Stan to build a race car, and we got to supply the engines. I'm like, you're not serious. He's like, yeah. So, of course, Stan builds a fabulous car. He builds this great car for Ricky. Next thing we know, we're racing all over the place with Ricky. And, of course, Diane always liked the winner, so so he didn't tell the whole story about this red-headed guy coming to Cundy's Harbor, Maine, and making a deal to drive this race car. You know, it didn't happen just like overnight. And of course, Stan had to build the car, and we had to hook up with him and get everything coordinated and do all this traveling around. So. Don't forget about the paint. Oh, yeah, and then unfortunately he wasn't crazy about the paint. We always wanted, well, my father-in-law wanted something different. So it actually was fire truck yellow, which is actually Ward LaFrance yellow is what it is, which is why it was that color, which was not Stan and Diane's favorite color either. So, but he left that out. And so we had quite a few race guys drive the race cars. Dick McCabe drove. Unfortunately, we never had Mike Rowe drive, but we had Earl Jones, Harvey Sprague, of course Ricky, and we did take Stan and Ralph Nason to Martinsville a couple times. So, but that's what happened with Ricky. He just didn't jump into this car. He came down and brought his resume and promoted himself, which he did a very good job. So, and then of course he moved on and left us behind. So, but that's how it started. So. Oh, and we had some good crews, Roger Doyon and several other guys that were really good crew chiefs, and we used to have a good time. So.
Bob Bailey, folks. I think Mr. Craven said something pretty crucial there. He said, I'm back. So that's also cool to hear. So we're now going to get into the portion of our evening here where I think it's kind of the whole point of why we are here, right? This is, I didn't even touch it this time. Does it work now? Perfect. So the entire point of why we are here tonight is to induct the next class of Maine Motorsports Hall of Famers, which is obviously an honor that lives forever, right? Championships, Hall of Fames, race wins, marquee events, those are things that live literally forever. Whether you are gone and in the ground or in a box in someone's living room at the end of all of this is what we call life, your name is still on a program somewhere as a previous winner or someone that got to do the ultimate achievement in what we all love and what we do on the weekends here. So we're now going to roll into the program, part of the program of where we do begin to induct the class of 2025. So on behalf of Joe Bessie, I would like to introduce the person inducting him, the one and only Chris Bowles.
Well, it'll take about 2 words, and you guys can figure out. I'm not from Maine, but maybe you can get through the Southern accent. And Ricky, I brought my cheater, so I'm doing better than you did. It's an honor for me to join all of you tonight. Joe called me a few weeks ago and asked me if I would do this, and I was absolutely honored. And it's so good to see so many friends from the past, and all of y'all have gotten older, and I'm not. I'm still as young as I was. But anyway, I thought back through some history when I was thinking about this and how to describe Joe. And the thing that I came up with was the old Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way. But then, you know, Elvis performed in this building, and he actually did the song better than Frank Sinatra, so let's just call it an Elvis song. But I first met Joe in June of 1990. I had just started working for NASCAR and had got a call from Jim Hunter and said, we're making some changes in the Busch North Series, and we need a new series director. He never asked me. I never said yes. He just said, be at Jennerstown for the next race. And by the way, we have some trouble with some drivers driving pretty rough, and you need to straighten that out. He never told me who it was, but I think maybe a couple of them are in the room tonight. So when I got to Jennerstown, I knew absolutely no one, not one person in the Busch North Series. I'd seen the names and followed it some from a distance, but I didn't know anything about the actual series at all. So when I got to Jennerstown, one of the first things I did is I said, I'm going to go and try to meet every competitor here. And for whatever reason, probably he was parked closest to the hauler. First guy I met was Joe Bessie. And I went in to the trailer and sat down and we talked for a few minutes. And we talked about what he was doing and what he was trying to accomplish, about his trucking company and so forth. And he was officially the first person to make fun of my southern accent, but that went on for years and years and years that everybody did. So the first thing that I thought about Joe when I met him and I went out of the trailer, I thought, he's always smiling. Have you ever noticed that, or am I the only one? Isn't he always smiling? And then I found out there's another side to Joe too that's not always smiling, but he was smiling for that part of the time. And I see that smile on his face today. It's still right there. But the other side of Joe is he was a fiery, compassionate competitor, just like many of you were. And you never had to ask where you stood with Joe. He would let you know. He still does. But I was fortunate enough just for the timing of being able to watch Joe go from weekly racing basically to the Busch North and then on to the trucks and Busch or Xfinity and eventually Cup. And it was very nice to watch this progression because Joe didn't have a season where he won 20 races or didn't have a season where he dominated everything, but he was always up front. He was always in the top 3 or top 5, won several races each year, and he was just consistent. And he moved quickly. He didn't camp out in one place for 10 years and then go to another place. It was just the quick movement that he did. And so in watching him go through the series and then getting ready for this, I realized there are very few people in the state of Maine that have gone through that progression. And Pete, I saw you over here somewhere. I guess you were the first, and then Ricky, and Andy, who could not be here tonight, and then Joe. And for those of you that have never been involved in one of the national series, it's different. It is completely different. And back at that time, and maybe still, people from the north weren't really welcome in the south, were they, Ricky? Pete, you probably experienced it more than anybody. But Joe went into the Busch Series and he earned the reputation and he was able to gain the respect of people down there. And once he did that, then he could advance. But the other thing about Joe, when he picked up and left Maine, he didn't have a national sponsor. He didn't have a major contract. He didn't have a major agreement with anybody. He just went. And he took everything. Sold his business, took his cars, took his parts, did all of that stuff. And then when you get down there, you find it's a 24/7 commitment. You are never off duty when you get to that level. And to just watch Joe progress through all of that was just an honor. And Joe, I've never asked you, but I don't know what your greatest accomplishment is, but driving A.J. Foyt's truck has to be at the top of that accomplishment. I don't know how you did that. That's just, I'd be scared to death to even get in his truck or what I would do. I got to go back just a minute. I need to know about that smile. Were you smiling when you threw the helmet at Dale Shaw? It was a pretty good hit. I mean, it went right in the window. Anyway, Joe did it his way, and it's different than what a lot of people do. I killed it this time. We need to buy a battery. There we go. So, whoa, that one's louder. Joe represented the state of Maine very well, and I think you should all be proud of what he did and the way he represented it. something that stands out to me with Joe is the very first Craftsman truck race was in Phoenix. I was there. Everybody at NASCAR was there. It was a big deal. Joe finished fourth. But let me tell you who the first three were. Mike Skinner, Terry Labonte, Ken Schroeder. Not a bad group to finish fourth with. Of course, he won the Xfinity race, and he also won an ARCA race. So he was successful in everything he did. But beyond that, Joe and I lost touch for a few years, kind of like you do, just kind of go your own way. A couple of years ago, Joe and I reconnected, and we started talking, obviously, about the racing and everything that we'd experienced and so forth. But the conversation turned pretty quickly, and it went to some of the things that Ricky even hinted at earlier. What's important? Family, friends, faith. And all of a sudden, we kind of hit a different level. And Joe has been a great friend to me. And I'm a better person because I know Joe Bessie. And I think most of you in the room would agree with that. It's my honor to introduce the next inductee, Joe Bessie.
Thank you, sir. Purdy. Good evening. I want to thank the Maine Vintage Racing Car Association for tonight and for all of those that put the time into something that requires volunteer help. And it's, as you all know, between fire departments, and it's a dying breed. And we all need to be grateful, and we all need to volunteer when they get a chance. And anybody that isn't a member, like myself, needs to sign up tonight. I want to congratulate the other 5 members going in tonight. Ironically, they're all good friends with the exception of Steve Pellerin, who has become a good friend. But the other 4 were really close, and we're all on the same timeline, growing up and racing together. And it's really cool that I'm going in with Mark, Rex, Willie, Timmy, I love Timmy. But we're all good friends, and that's really special about this class to me. And I want to step back one quick second, and he's gonna kill me when I talk about this, but I'm going to anyways. I had a lot of calls, a lot of messages, a lot of texts this week. Congratulatory and nice. It's been this whole year. It's really stirred the pot emotionally. I'd never had to I rebuilt my timeline in racing right from the beginning, and there's so many of you that have followed me. The highs are just as high as the lows are low. It's just been one of those careers, and I'm grateful. If I had to do it all again tomorrow, I'd do it the exact damn way. I'm just stubborn like that. Been my own person, and it's to fault at times, but it's just what I do. But I want to step back. I mentioned the conversations, and again, he's not going to be happy we're going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it for just a little bit. And there's a reason Rex Garrett isn't here tonight. There's a reason he's having 2 of his beautiful 3 daughters accept on his behalf. And to hell with you, Rex. I'm going to tell everybody in this room, but you need our prayers. And anybody that knows Rex knows why. And he was such a good friend. I saw him this year at the 250. We talked for an hour. He was so excited about coming up here tonight. And anybody that knows Rex knows he's just one of the best ones in this sport. So anybody who gets a chance and knows him, send him a prayer down in North Carolina. Love him to death. Grateful for his daughters coming tonight. Just special man. And I'll leave it at that. And I want to go on to, I want to thank Ricky. Kind words, Ricky. Appreciate it. Always have. Always had to. I wished I had your silver tongue. When I was 26, 27 years old, here's Ricky, 24, 23, talking like, somebody right off TV. Smooth as silk, that kid has been. And it's been fun watching him. And it's even going to be more fun watching him this next year with what he does up in Bangor. I posted on Facebook earlier this year, and it's just popped into my head, but it's like, buckle up, Bangor. RC's coming home. And he's doing a great job. And I think it's going to be great for all of the tracks. I think it's going to be one of the best seasons ever for race fans and the competitors. There's just a lot going on, and it's one of the few years in the longest time I can remember people being excited this time of year about what's going to happen in the spring. Really happy for you. I know everybody in this room is. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for the kind words. A couple of guys that are in this room tonight, and a lot of you, I'm all about old school. I love old school. And those of you that went to school back when I did, there were certain teachers that had no hesitation whatsoever taking a ruler to your knuckles should you mess up. And there's a couple of drivers in this room tonight that I consider the professors, and I modeled myself after them. And they're heroes, they're legends, they're professors. You messed up, they would teach you. And one of them's Dick McCabe, very big fan of his, always loved him, loved his wife, loved his whole team. I lost the championship to him in 1992 by 4 points. And because it was him, it didn't hurt half as bad to have him. At least I got beat by one of my heroes. The other one in this room is Mike Rowe. I've had the chance to be around that man for the past 2 or 3 years, more than I have in my entire life. And I met him when I was 18. I used to haul snow for him up at the Auburn Mall. And it worshipped him from a distance at that point. And then, like Ricky, probably I'm sure many times, we had to pinch ourselves knowing that we were racing with Dick McCabe and Mike Rowe. And a couple of legends. And they taught me a lot. They taught me how to race. There's a reason Ricky and I, Dick and Mike, never had on-track altercations, because we had the professors. And they took plenty of people to school, but Ricky and I weren't one of them. And just great to see you, Dick, and always great to see you, Mike. There's a lot of people in this room tonight. There's an old country song. It's called, it's Tracy Lawrence. Find out who your friends are. And anybody that's here tonight, sitting in my section, is here because they love me. They're my friends. They've supported me. There's no reason for it. If you're not here wholeheartedly for me, there's no reason anybody would be here tonight. And I got a lot of people sitting in that corner, and they're all extremely special. They've all had an impact on my career. I'm not going to go into names. I'm trying to keep this short, but they're all very special sitting over there in those 9 tables in that corner. Appreciate you all. Love you all. I want to thank Chris for coming up all the way from Daytona. Pretty special. I had a lot of fun with him. that whole Bush North, we all had a lot of fun with that Bush North series. It was like everything else in the 90s. It just seemed like you couldn't do anything wrong, whether it was in the Bush North or whether it was in the NASCAR Elite Series down below. Ricky and I, and Andy, who's not here, we just happened to be at the right place at the right time. We all came in early 90s. We still couldn't fill the stands. By mid-90s, they were adding 50,000 seats and building $150,000 seat tracks like they were going out of style. And the sport exploded right there in front of us. And not so much Ricky, but if I would have got, I've always considered myself an average driver with above average talent that I've surrounded myself with. And they gave me good cars. And I was lucky enough to go down there the first couple of years. There was only 40 cars going for 44 spots, so it was easy to get in, get your feet wet. And I'm a slow learner, as most of you know. But it wasn't 2 or 3 years later. There were 75 cars going for 44 spots. And I was lucky enough that because I'd gotten those 2 or 3 years under my belt, I didn't have trouble making shows. But I mean, some of the biggest names in racing were going home. It was just, the sport was so popular, and it was just, I doubt very much there'll ever be a decade like the 90s ever again in motorsports. It was just incredible to watch. It was incredible to be, when I went down there, and I'm going to try to keep this short, but Dale Earnhardt was still selling parts, used parts, out of a turkey barn on his farm. And he did all this to subsidize this little plane he had just bought, where they all would fly all over the country during the week and have match races. It'd be him, Rusty Schrader. There was a bunch of them that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they'd be out in the middle of East Bum, racing for $5,000. And that's how they paid for their planes. And I remember him saying, Bessie, you need to get yourself a plane. I'm okay. I always looked like $1 million, but I didn't have $1 million. But anyway, it was buying the used parts from him that created this wonderful relationship, because they still put their shoes on the same way we did. And once they got over the ones that really accepted me, once they got over the whole Yankee thing, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you that isn't a serious thing down there. I'm not so sure, I haven't been down there a lot, but I was down there in the early 90s and through that whole decade, and you had to be special for them to accept you, and they accepted Ricky and I, and I can tell this story real quick, but anytime during my first year when they figured out I was from Maine, you'd think the first thing out of their mouths would be, Bessie, how about some lobsters? Or Bessie, what about this? Or Bessie, what about that? But it was, hey Bessie, you know Pete Silva? Everybody loved Pete. And I think Pete paved the way for Ricky. Ricky paved the way for me. And so on down the ladder. But it was just a wonderful experience to have a relationship with people like Dale Earnhardt and AJ Foyt, and I can't tell you the amount of doors that racing has opened for me. That's the highlights of my career. I have wins, I have big wins, not a lot of them, but I have big wins. But it's things like knowing Senior and knowing AJ, and being accepted. They liked me. It was a really good time for myself and my crew. The crew, Earnhardt used to hide in Daytona. Earnhardt would hide in our stall, in our pit stall, to get privacy during the speed weeks when he was over there practicing his Busch car. He'd come sit in the corner, and this gentleman over there will attest to this story, but he'd bring in a whole flat of strawberries for the guys. And it was like everybody knew not to make a scene, just because if he noticed, he'd leave. But he'd bring home the strawberries. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time down there. And if I had to do it all again, I would do it the exact same way. I'd take the same risks. It's priceless. It was a priceless experience. And this only caps off a priceless time in motorsports. I call this whole thing's been a year-long, really exciting time for me. I call this a late in life win that I'll forever take with me. I'm going to end this with a little short story. I promise it's short. There's 4 women in this room, and some of you may be surprised by that, some of you may not, that are responsible for me being up here tonight. And I'm going to start. One of them is my mother. She's sitting over there. She's my rock. She's my island. She's been there since the start. She absolutely despised the amount of money I spent on racing. But in the end, she saw why. She saw what I saw. Just want to acknowledge her, because without her, I wouldn't be standing here, quite obviously. There's another woman in here, and I gotta find her. Where are you, Phyllis? There she is, Phyllis Wilson. I don't think she knows this story, but each one of us get a hook set somewhere along the line, and I heard Ricky say it from sitting in the grandstands at Speedway 95, where we know what we are going to do everything in our power to do, a dream that we're going to chase through hell and high water. And Ricky's and mine was being a race car driver. Well, that dream, that hook got set. My mother and father were close friends with Dickie and Phyllis, and Dickie and Phyllis used to often host racing parties in the off-season, in the winter, Christmas parties. And as a kid, I was probably 3, 4 years old at the most, but I was lucky enough to tag along with my parents, but I'd get put to bed on the floor of Dickie's trophy room. Now imagine a 4-year-old kid being put to bed on the floor, looking around me, and there was models, there was jackets, there was trophies, there was pictures. Dickie was my hero, and the hook was set there, and it was, Phyllis and Dickie have been like parents for me, and my mother. My mother's got just a few years on me. She's more like my sister, but Phyllis and Dickie have been incredible friends, family. I just want to acknowledge her, and I would not be standing up here tonight had I not had my dream set in Phyllis's house. Thank you, Phyllis, very much. Love you. I know. Love you. Again, I said there was 4 women. The next woman, and this is all part of the succession. For most of you that know me, when I got done cup racing in, I want to say it was the end of the 2000 season, I was broken. I was beat. I had laid it all out there for 10 years, and it had used me up and chewed me out. A lot of people ask me, why did you put Bodine in your cup car? Why didn't you drive it? I was junk. I had powered my way through years and years of looking like a million with very little to look like a million with, but I persevered. But so my point is, when I got done, I was literally MIA in the sport for 20 years. And had no intention of coming back because I hadn't looked back. It was painful to look back. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing, but it wasn't going to be at a racetrack, in my mind. Fast forward to 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to meet Donna Pastore, whose son Joey is very successful, very active in go-kart, in stock car racing, and now his son Jace, hi Jace, is he's going to be the next Mike Rowe, since Mike Rowe's his great-grandfather, but he's going to be the prince that takes over for the king someday. But Donna gave me a small choice. You're coming to the racetrack with me, or you're not. And if you're not planning on coming to the racetrack, we don't need to take this any further, because racing's my life. And it is true. There's nobody any more passionate about racing than Donna. And so it was Donna that led me back to the racetrack 20 years before I walked back into Oxford. And I'm sure, had I not done that, and her not given me a good reason to be back at the racetrack, I wouldn't be standing here tonight. And it was being back at the racetrack and exposing myself to, I call them fears, they were to a certain extent. I didn't know how people thought about me anymore. I hadn't checked and for 20 years. But it was being back at the racetrack and embracing it that I'm quite sure was the reason Sandy Haley, who's down here on the floor, put me in front of the voting committee and made me eligible for the Hall of Fame. And that's literally, it was those 4 women are the reason I'm standing here tonight. And I'm grateful to all 4 of them. And I'm so happy all 4 of them are here. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody in this room. If you're here tonight, I mean, this isn't the biggest deal in town, but if you're a real racer, you're here tonight. And it's really special to be here tonight. I just want to thank everybody. And I want everybody else to have a good night. I want to welcome the rest of the competitors up here, and I will get off the stage. Thank you very much.
All right, so I had 3 takeaways from that. One is the 90s were awesome and no mistakes were ever made. I was born in 93, so you're welcome. Secondly, the anecdote of falling asleep on Phyllis Walton-Hume's floor in front of all those trophies. It's a little bit of a full circle moment for me because I, as a young boy who adored race cars and all things racing, had a pretty sweet number 9 die-cast truck up on my wall that I used to fall asleep to as well too. So thank you, Joe, for sharing those stories and coming up here. Round of applause for Joe Bessie. Now to come up and introduce our second Hall of Fame inductee, the son of Tim Brackett. Please welcome to the stage, TJ Brackett.
Well, I've never given a speech before and never wrote one, and now I had to follow Ricky Craven, Joe Bessie, and 66.6 of Black Flag. Yeah, so this ought to go well. First, I'd like to congratulate all the inductees tonight. This is certainly an accomplishment to be proud of. My dad has done just about everything there is to do in racing, and he's done it with success. He's raced from New Hampshire to Nova Scotia, and over the years he's won 60 races, 4 championships in the premier divisions at Oxford, and has wins in each of the last 6 decades. He's also passed his knowledge on, guiding both my sister Vanna and myself to multiple wins and championships. His passion for racing didn't stop at the driver's seat, it became part of who we are as a family. Looking back on his career, Dad's first win came in a Charger in 1979. That was memorable, not just because it was his first, but because he did it with a broken arm using a suicide knob on the steering wheel to get it done. From 1980 to 82, he raced part-time while proudly serving in the U.S. Navy as a Seabee. When he returned, he continued racing Chargers, racking up multiple wins in a competitive field until 1989, when he made the move up to the late model division. That rookie year, his first late model win was a special one. Not only was the first rookie to win in that division, but he did it with some incredible company. Mike Rowe finished second, Leland Kangas finished third, and close friend Dale Shaw, after wrecking, parked behind the old infield flag stand and waved the checkered flag himself. In the 90s, Dad became something of a local legend, sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. He was a crowd favorite at the track and earned the nickname of the Muffin Man, thanks to Bobby Walker. That name stuck for a good decade or more, and if you were around local racing back then, you probably knew exactly who the Muffin Man was. As a kid, he was the coolest. My dad wasn't just out there racing, he was the man to me. I always wanted to be like him, to drive like him, to work as hard as him, and have people respect him the way that they respected him. From those moments until today, he remained a household name and a contender, racing late models and ACT-type cars, and has always been a threat to win. Dad captured his first auction championship in 2005, overcoming a blown motor in practice. We swapped seats, he jumped in my car and drove it to third, locking up the championship. It was pure determination, and he didn't stop there. He went on to win 3 more in 2010, 15, and 16. One of my favorite memories from around that time was the night our family swept Victory Lane. Dad won, I finished second, Vanna came in third. We're the first family to do that in the Premier Division at Oxford. If you know my dad, you know that no one loves racing or is more dedicated to it than he is. He's at the track every weekend of the season, usually the first one in line. No matter what else is going on, if something stands in the way of racing, he'll find a way to make it work. Somehow, some way, he's always at birthday parties, dance recitals, and sports games without missing the races. A perfect example of that dedication came in '94. After a really bad wreck at Wiscasset, which he shouldn't have raced the next week, but the next race at Oxford the next week, he taped his eyes open and finished third. That's commitment or stubbornness, but either way, that's him. When he's not racing, Dad loves spending time with the grandkids, Colby, Corey, Peyton, Mallory, and Emma, taking them snowmobiling or on four-wheeler rides. Racing has always been at the center of our family life, but at those moments together, that just means as much. Some of my best memories growing up are those simple: riding with Dad to Dale Shaw's for parts, or heading to Cundy's Harbor to see Bob for engine work, or spending nights in the garage working on the car. Racing has always been a family thing to us. Started with him, then he met my mom, who thankfully already loved racing. It takes a special woman to give up her weekends and free time for all those years to support this hobby. That kind of dedication deserves to be celebrated too. Eventually, Vanna and I came along, and before long, it was the 4 of us, week after week, together at the track. Now our group has grown, and we're there every Saturday with our own families. Some of us racing, some of us helping, some of us supporting, but we're there spending time together and making memories. And it all started with him. He certainly has a lot to be celebrated for, and many outstanding accomplishments on the track, but that's a pretty important one off the track in my opinion. One of my favorite recent memories came just last year. I wrecked early in the Mid-Coast Excavation Pass race, which for once gave me the chance to stand back and watch Dad win his first pass race. Watching him take that check flag meant a lot. With a pass win last year and another weekly win this year, it's clear he's not showing any signs of slowing down. So tonight we celebrate a man who's accomplished incredible things on the track, inspired those around him, and built a family that shares his passion for the sport. His legacy isn't just in the wins and championships, it's in the love for racing and the family he has created. He will pass down through generations. I am honored and incredibly proud to induct my dad, Tim Brackett, into the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame. Congrats, Dad. You earned this.
Well, I haven't done much public speaking myself, so this won't be long. I give Joe all my time anyway. First of all, I would like to thank the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. Such an honor. I've known and looked up a lot of the prior inductees and put in the same category as Mike Rowe, Al Hammond, Ricky Craven, Stan McGurk is something that I never expected. My father raced and was a car owner and sponsored race cars. They were always around, race cars were always around. It seemed natural, turn 16, start driving a race car. My father, who everyone knew as Froggy, got my first car together, I was a young kid, and not just for me, he helped so many other drivers. He'd been gone 37 years, so he missed a lot of my racing career, but I would like to thank a couple of people who stepped up to help me along the way, like John Boyd, Bob Bailey, Diz Dean, Kyle Morey. I've had a lot of crew members over the year, and I don't want to list them all because then I'd be eating up to Joe's time. But my grandson Colby, Kyle, Troy, Davey, and Mark have been around quite a while. Most of all, I'd like to thank my family, my wife Jennifer of 44 years, who I met at the track. They've been with me my entire career. She put up with a lot of late nights, getting things together, chasing parts, working on cars, taking care of kids, grandkids, spotted and scored. When I've had bad times and think I'm ready to be done, she lets me air it out and then says, "You're not going to stop, there's nothing you'd rather do." And she's as much of a racer as anybody, even though she's never turned a wheel. My kids have always been so supportive. I couldn't have raced so long and achieved any success without them. TJ has always worked hard on my cars, and at times has even put my car over his own. Vanna does my spotting, stays at work, so I can leave for the track, always support me, and doesn't hesitate to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Colby has always been by my side to help out, whether it's at the garage or track or driving the hauler. Probably don't tell them enough how much I appreciate what they do for me. And my son-in-law Kyle, also racing, Kelsey, Corey, and the granddaughters in the pits. Like TJ mentioned, is really involved in what we do as a family. In closing, I'd like to say racing is a big part of my life, and I've met many friends at the track throughout the years. I want to congratulate my fellow inductees, Willie, Mark, Rex, Steve, who built an amazing model of the old 41 Wrecker that we had at Oxford for years. And to Joe, thank you for giving me, then a Charger driver, that shot in racing his Bush North car. By the way, I went late models the next year, so it's your fault. It's an honor to be inducted with all of you, and this is a night I'll always remember. Thank you.
All right, so after hearing Matt and the inductee speech as well too, I think that there's one word that I think really culminates the entire embodiment of what the Maine Vintage Race Car Association is and the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, not only for tonight, but just its entire history. And it's one word, it's very easy, it's just badass. You guys are literal heroes. You are superheroes without capes, you just get to wear sponsors on your chest instead. And I think that that is the coolest thing in the world, for sure. So, talking about taping your eyes open just to race, I complain when it rains and my knee hurts. So thank you for everything that you've done in your past and continue to do moving forward. One more round of applause for Tim Brown. We now move on to our third of 5 Hall of Fame inductees here tonight. And without any further ado, to help induct the third member of the 2025 class, I get to introduce to you, yet again, Dan Walker to induct Willie Elliott.
So I am truly honored to be able to introduce to you the next inductee into the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, class of 2025. When Willie Elliott arrived on the scene as a driver at Beach Ridge Motor Speedway back in the early 70s, one could have wondered if he mistook the racetrack for a rock concert venue. You heard Ricky mention earlier about the hair. Well, the hair's getting shorter and maybe a different color. But he showed up in the 70s there with the long hair, the full beard. But after watching him carve out a career that saw him win over 90 feature races, it was obvious he was not destined to be a rock star with a big fan following, but just a rock star in the racing world. And he actually did have a big fan following because those fans voted him as the most popular driver of 3 consecutive years. But like most successful drivers, Willie started out in the entry-level Daredevil division at Beechridge, and over the course of time, moved his way up through the ranks into the limited sportsman division, the late model sportsman division, and eventually the top division at the time, the open wheel modifieds. On the climb to the top, Willie secured multiple feature race wins in every division that he competed in. Approximately over 90 wins along the way, including wins at Beechridge, Oxford Plains Speedway, White Mountain Motorsport Park, and others he couldn't remember. I can't imagine not remembering a win. In 1984, Willie claimed the Modified Division Championship at Beechridge, and he was always a frontrunner. When Beechridge discontinued with the Modified Division following the 1990 season, Willie was instrumental in moving the division to Oxford Plains Speedway with a newly titled organization of drivers and owners founded the Maine Modifieds. And they had a brief stint of 10 races for a couple of seasons, and of course he won more than his fair share of those races there as well. After Oxford Plains Speedway management decided to discontinue with the Modified Division, the Maine Modifieds found a new home in New Hampshire at White Mountain Motorsport Park, where Willie continued his winning ways. Willie won the division championship the first year, and over the course of the 2 seasons that the Maine Modifieds raced at White Mountain Motorsport Park, he won 26 of 32 races. It's been said that a race car driver's legacy is built by the level of competition that they battle with on the racetrack. We've heard that several times tonight. Well, Willie competed against and often beat 17 current members of this Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame over the years in competition. An astonishing feat when you think about some of the names like Drew and Wollstonhume, Cusack, Meserve, Turner, Stevens, and many more. In fact, Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame inductee and longtime modified car owner Dave Kudermarsh may have the most amount of races competed against Willie, with Dave's stable of championship caliber drivers over the years. And in Dave's words, he said, Willie was a treat to race against. He was a good, clean driver who was perfect fit for Beechridge, a huge fan favorite. I'm not sure if we had more fun racing with Willie or fun with him after the races. He truly is so deserving of this Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame induction, and I wish I could be there. During his driving career, and well after Willie turned to race car fabrication and assisted in building many of the top cars in the New England area, while working side by side with Hall of Fame inductee Don Letarte, who Willie shares a lifelong friendship with, and later on with Dick Lyons. Together, they built some of the best race cars ever to take to the racetrack in the Northeast. Willie also had the opportunity to race in England, and I'm not going to get into that story of that trip, but hopefully Willie will share that with you, and if he doesn't, ask him about it, because it's crazy. So it's my honor on this day, November 1st, 2025, to present to you for induction into the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, Mr. Willie Elliott. Which side do you want? Right here. There you go. There you go, brother. That's yours when you leave, okay? The folder. Have fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank you for getting voted into this. It's an honor that I never expected. And there's some great people that I've raced against, places I've raced, and people have been great. I want to thank my family all for coming. I got my mother-in-law, Pat, sister-in-law, Laurie, my beautiful wife, Lorna, daughter, Elise, and her husband, Ray, grandson, Logan, and Brielle. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Also, I want to thank Donnie coming up from North Carolina to come up for this special occasion. We had a lot of good times. We built a lot of cars together. We went through a lot together. Built most of my cars at Donnie's shop. And back in 1984, Dick Roma, he was a good friend with Donnie's. He came up one day and decided he wanted to be a car owner. Well, I think we had a modified chassis sitting out there, and Dick ended up buying it, and we ended up teaming up for the '84 season. We went out and won 7 races. I think we had 20 top 5 finishes, but I think most of them was top 2 or 3s, and won the championship. Quite a feat for the first season. And thank you, Sharon, Dick's wife, a couple of guys that was on my crew, Mitch Barabee, and his wife Annette, Dan Litchfield, and there was more, but they stayed with me, and we had a lot of wins together, a lot of good times. We all grew up together, and it was great. I don't know where to go from there. Now, Dan was talking about my England trip. That was a race we won in '84. There was an exchange deal between the United States and England. 2 of us went to England, and they sent a guy over here to race. Well, in '84, Stu Smith came over. He had won like 12 of these world finals. He won over 1,000 races over there. Well, he came over before we went over, and we got to hang out, drink a lot of beer, have a good party. But we went to England. He met us at the airport, him and his car owner, and picked us up. We hung out with them all week. They took us all toward the whole country of England. Well, we got to the racetrack for this world final, and these things, I don't know, I think there's a couple of pictures of the cars. These are nothing like what we raced. These things, we get there and I look at the car, and it's got a straight X front end, leaf springs in the front end. It's got 3 snow tires on it and 1 summer tire. I'm saying, holy shit. It's got this big pipe on the right front, and it's all braced and stuff. I said, what's that for? Boy, when you get on the track, they got cables all the way around the track, all the way around, and they lock you in. Well, these cables are so when you hit the cable, shoots you back out on the racetrack, keep you going. I said, okay, yeah, this is all right. Well, over there, it's a contact sport. They tell you right up front, yeah, it's contact sport. You know, you come up behind somebody, you put the bumper to them, put them in the fence or whatever, and they don't stop the race unless you're upside down or on fire. So if you're in the middle of the track, you're there for the end. Well, I get in the car. It's got a 427 motor in it. Old truck 4-speed. You're sitting, straddling the shifter and stuff. I get in it. My head's in the roof. I'm sitting there in the car like this. They don't have a windshield in it. This had a steel plate in the windshield. They cut a slot, cut a couple of notches, and they fold it down so you got a slot like you're looking out through. And I'm looking out through it. And I said, Jesus. Steering wheel comes through on the side. The steering box over here. The steering wheel's like this. Okay. So they come over and they say, you got 3 laps. That's your time trial lap. I says, 3 laps? You know, you don't get no practice. No, that's your practice. 3 qualifying laps. Well, we started last, but most of the guys, all the guys over there, they'd been over there for a couple of weeks racing. They race these cars, so we was at a disadvantage. Well, we run the first, like a, I don't know what they call it for a race, but we got tangled up and ripped the front end off. And I got pictures of the crew with a big sledgehammer beating the front end back to shape. So we go out in the race, world final. It's great, you know, you're out there, there's 38,000 people at this little short track. And they're all hooting and hollering. They put you on the hood of the car and the mechanic drives you around the racetrack. And you wave to the people. It's okay, you know, great. So we get in the race and stuff. We're out there racing. And I don't know, probably half, 3/4 of the way through the race, I'm racing, you know, I'm racing around some guys and stuff. Next thing you know, boom, we all get hit, a bunch of us spin. Well, my car wouldn't start before the race, I had to push start it, so I'm sitting coming out of two-turn, in the middle of the track, crossways in the middle of the track. There's 3 or 4 cars sitting just down the track from me. And I'm watching the race, the rest of the race. Well, you guys have raced, ever spun out and sat there and watched cars come at you? Well, sit there for the whole race and watch it. I tell you, it was quite an experience. Well, you know, they're coming at you because it's dirt and they're 427, they're coming at you sideways. And, you know, you're sitting there in the car, you know, you can't move, you're stuck there. Well, this Stu Smith, he wins the race for the, I don't know, like 12th time or something. Well, we came to the racetrack with him, and he wins this big trophy. And it was a big affair. We went back to his sponsor's house, and we're all drinking out of this big, giant cup. We partied, and his car owner, he had an American flag. He's running up and down the street. We all had a few beers, running up and down the street, singing "God Bless America." Now, that was quite. There's so many things that happened during that trip that I can tell you about. That was an experience that I'll never forget. Also, you know, I want to thank everybody for coming. Everybody have a great holidays. One other thing is, you know, a good friend of mine just passed away, Bobby Hand, that I raced with him. We built him cars, and rest in peace, Bobby. Thank you, everybody.
All right, very quick story about myself here real quick. When I was about 7 years old, my dad and I had finally saved up enough bottles and cans to buy my first go-kart, right? So being someone whose name is Charles III, I came out of the womb without any sort of my own identity, right? So I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of the guys here who are juniors or TJs or the thirds or fourths, my kids, sorry. I think I can kind of give the sense of feeling that we have, like I need to be my own man, right? So I'll never forget it. I was 7 years old and we're getting ready to race go-karts on the front stretch of Beach Ridge Motor Speedway. And my dad was on the phone with Joe Pastore Sr. And the question was, what number does the boy want to be? Mind you, again, I was born Charles III. My dad was number 23. My grandfather was 55. So one conversation that always stuck with me was, my mother always told me from a very young age, there's only one number one. And in that moment, I remember that, and I said, I want to be the number one. And I'm going to build a brand around this, and I'm going to be a badass, and I'm going to be my own guy. And man, was that 8-year-old kid pissed off when he figured out that someone had already done it. So thank you, Willie Elliott, for being the number one before I got to be it. So thank you, thank you. Moving on throughout our evening here, it is an honor to not only, again, be up here on stage, but to introduce the inductees and the people inducting them. So next on our list here for the 4th inductee for the class of 2025 for the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, I would like to introduce to you Rex Garrett's daughters, Kristen Collins and Jamie Turbo.
Wow. A lot of people here. Okay, well, I will start by saying that I know that my dad was just floored when he found out a year ago that he was going to be inducted, and we were just all so proud of him. And Fast forward to now, unfortunately, he could not make it. I know that he was really looking forward to it. My mom, Sally Garrett, was really looking forward to being here, and our younger sister, Molly, she just had a baby, so she had to stay back home. But stay with me through this. It's an honor to stand here tonight and introduce not only an incredibly talented and hardworking man, but also someone we are so proud to call our dad, Rex Garrett. When people think of my dad, they think of his remarkable motorsports career, championships, innovation, and decades spent perfecting powertrains that not only drove race cars to victory, but also inspired those who worked and learned beside him. But to me, and to our family, his greatest success is the life that he's built around us. My dad is a self-taught mechanic who learned through trial and error, hands-on experience, and the guidance of seasoned mentors. Building a career fueled by determination, curiosity, and an unstoppable work ethic. Every late night in the shop, every mile traveled to a racetrack, every long week away from home was always with one goal in mind: to provide for his family and to give us a life he could be proud of. He's shown us that success doesn't come from shortcuts or luck, but from grit, patience, and perseverance. Through his example, I learned that no challenge is too great when you're willing to put in the work, and that even when life gets tough, you keep moving forward. One of my favorite memories is riding in his blue El Camino on Saturday afternoon. The windows were down, classic rock blasting, and a Garrett-built gearbox's decal proudly displayed on the back. In those moments, I saw my dad completely at ease, singing, smiling, soaking it all in. Those rides taught me something that I carry with me today: to take the moments as they come, to breathe, to laugh, and to appreciate the simple joys: the wind in your hair, the music you love, and the company of the people who matter the most.
So tonight, we celebrate not just a career, but a lasting impact, a journey that began in our home garage in Scarborough and the short tracks of Maine, evolved through NASCAR garages, and continues as a legacy of innovation and racing technology. My dad's story is one of determination, passion, and relentless curiosity. He didn't start with million-dollar equipment or corporate sponsors. He started with basic shop tools and an aspiration to build a life doing what he loves while providing for the people he loves. He was a fixture at the local tracks, but not just as a mechanic. He is a problem solver, a learner, and a competitor who earned respect through hard work and results. But what has set him apart isn't just his mechanical skill, it's his vision. He sees racing not just as a sport, but as a science, always asking himself, how can I make it better? That mindset has taken him far beyond the local scene. We all know his talent and innovation brought him to Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, a dream come true for any mechanic. But what many may not know is that Earnhardt Technologies Group is his brainchild. His small town start scaled to a first-class, high-performance organization that honors the legacy of an idol. Even as his career grew, he never forgot where he came from. He has always made time for the weekend warriors, the young builders, the dreamers, because he was one of them. To me, he's Dad, the guy who taught me how to use a wrench, yes, but more importantly, how to think critically, how to lead with integrity, and how to never settle for good enough. His mindset lives in us. My sisters and I have inherited his drive to learn, his passion for innovation, and his belief that challenges are just opportunities in disguise. Like him, we see our work not just as a job, but as a craft, something to be honed, improved, and elevated. He taught us that vision paired with hard work can turn dreams into reality. My father's story is one of passion, perseverance, and love. He's built more than transmissions. He's built a legacy, a family, and a life that inspires everyone lucky enough to know him. So tonight, we honor not only an extraordinary career and the legacy he has built in motorsports, but the unwavering leadership and strength he's brought to our family. So So please join us in welcoming our father, Rex Garrett, into the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Good evening, friends. I'm sorry I'm not able to attend this evening. I'm having a new treatment and cannot travel. I would like to thank the Board of Directors of the Motorsports Hall of Fame for considering me. What an honor. Congratulations to the 2025 award recipients. What a great group. Thanks again for such a prestigious award. Cheers to all. Enjoy the evening.
I think that just further solidifies the theme of the night, badass, for sure. Round of applause for Rex Garrett. All right, so we now move on to our 5th of 6 inductees for the evening. Please welcome to the stage to induct Steve Pellerin. Welcome, Gail Libby.
This year marks the 23rd anniversary of the MVRCA and the 21st anniversary of our Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. Some of us were here for that first one in 2004. And I guess we're going to have to mention Phyllis's name again because she was here that night. This year, I am so proud to present Steve Pellerin to be inducted, as he is in the first of the historian category. For over 20 plus years, Steve has helped us meet our charter goals by being involved in almost all aspects of the growth of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. Some worthy inductees are here tonight who have helped to create Maine racing history. Steve has worked to preserve, present, display, write about, and speak to keep our Maine history alive so that we as families and racing teams and fans can keep enjoying and sharing our memories. I was having a conversation with Lomer Pelletier, who is another Hall of Famer, and I was trying to explain to him that taking all of the information about Steve is like trying to take the Oxford 250 and make a drag race out of it. But Lomer had some advice. So, Lomer, would you like to tell him what you told me?
Who comes out of the gate first?
Okay, so here comes out of the gate first. That means step on it. So here we go. These are examples of Steve's support. He is a charter member and he was one of the first 25 attendees at the first exploratory meeting in January 2002 that formed the Maine Vintage Race Car Association. He's been a director, he's been an advisor. In 2004, when the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame was becoming a reality, he was on the steering committee and he created the concept for the Hall of Fame logo and the signage and posters for our first event. Then he served on the selection committee for 16 years. Quoting Stephanie and Paige, Steve has always been well prepared with thoughtful effort, appropriate choices for the selection that matched our mission. He has helped to organize and create displays for the first Summerfest in 2005, which has become one of our most successful and popular events of our association. As the event started to grow, he suggested that an award should be formed to thank members for their hard work and their support and efforts. That was when the Crumpled Roof Award became a way for our Libby family to present this well-deserved award in memory of my father to members each year. When the Mobile Museum project began, he was on the steering committee and the design group. He produced all of the lettering and the decals, and in one day, he and Wayne True lettered and applied all the pictures and the graphics. This is what everyone sees as the museum impressively goes down the highway to another event, a county fair, or maybe the Bentley's car show. Inside the mobile museum, you can see the historic posters that he produced that highlight racing events and the special championship races. And as the mobile museum appeared at more events, the memorabilia donations began to increase. For years, the care, the organization, the cataloging, and those sentimental pieces have been in good hands, as Steve has spent many hours making sure that we safely handle them and present them properly as we revamp for the next appearance. One day, I talked to Steve, and he was just got back from working and organizing in the storage unit where all of our memorabilia is located. He said, I am organizing this so that when you get ready to revamp the mobile museum, you can drive up, you can open up the door, and you can go in, and everything will be ready for you to use for the next show. And I thought to myself, most women would never let the guy go in and organize their closet. But in true fashion, Steve gave me a diagram of every rack and every shelf and what was on it so that I could use that when it happened. So many of you also recognize Steve for other contributions. He had been a fan of racing since 1967 and followed a local driver named Jim McClure. Then he owned a limited series race car, served on the Beach Ridge Fire and Safety infield crew. It was a crew member for the Coup de Marche racing with Larry Tangway and then Ricky Harrison. He became interested in racing history and joined NEAR, New England Antique Racers Association. He served on their Hall of Fame selection committee for 18 years and helped to get some more inductees recognized in their Hall of Fame. Then he began restoring iconic cars, first from Beach Ridge Speedway. He retrieved the number 9 Bruce Elder C-Class from the woods, and he restored it. He retrieved the V8 B-Class Bob Tangway car and restored it. And then Dick McCabe, I'm told, brought him his 0 B-Class to restore. All of these cars received best awards for best display in vintage car at the racing preview shows in Portland and the Northeast Motorsports Expo. Next, he went to Meredith, New Hampshire to buy Dick Garrett's number 2, and it had been an ice racer for nearly 20 years. He got it, he finished, and the restoration was done in 2006. He also built a replica of the Homer Drew's J2. He also did a number 6 for Dick Wolstenhume and number 29 for Ernie Gahan. And who doesn't remember his models? Anyone who has been to one of the popular racing shows has seen these displays of models. It is truly reliving racing history through model cars. The most impressive collection was, yes, started as a hobby as a young man, and then became one of the most popular tables at the Race and Preview in Portland and car shows and other events. It includes cars from well-known Beach Ridge, Oxford, late model sportsmen, modified and NASCAR legends. He now has 300 in his collection and has probably given away over 200. There are some very emotional stories that have come from the reactions of people when they spy their favorite car as a family member or a fan. I hope he shares some of those reasons why he has taken such care to preserve their memories. And also the contributions to publications. He wrote for the Racing Paper for 15 years. He did Short Track Racing Magazine, Vintage Racer. In our 10th anniversary book of the MVRCA, he wrote many chapters and stories, and he won an award for a chapter on the Maine racing history in the book called A History of Auto Racing in New England, published by Coastal 181. And as we wrap up this presentation, you need to ask him about some other works that he's done lately. Ask him about the work for the Smithsonian, the U.S. Historic Commission, and how it will be recording on Beach Ridge Speedway. Ask him about the work with Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dirty Mo Media, on the film on Arundel Speedway. And as his wife told me, this isn't just a hobby, this is about 20 years past hobby. He has always looked to provide historic information and help on any project and give 110%. Thank you, Steve, for helping to keep our memories safe.
Thank you very much, Gail, for those kind words. This quick speech is kind of a reflection, so to speak, of the Maine Vintage Club. 20 years ago or more, this relatively new Maine Vintage group, we were following a dream, and we came together to create this Hall of Fame. And since that humble beginning, Maine races, their accomplishments, and the history have been recognized. Through the years, we've honored prolific men and women of the racing community for their extraordinary achievements and impacts on the sport. One thing that hasn't changed, though, folks, is from that first Hall of Fame, there was only about 20 of us, and today it's still about 10 or 20 of us. So if there's some of you that are out there thinking that you might like to help, we could certainly use a hand on something to keep this worthy endeavor going. Many of the people inducted in this Hall of Fame have been my heroes. Others, in pursuit of their love of the sport, set a standard and blazed a path or made a difference for others. The history honored here brings definition and a sense of measure to our experiences. And my congratulations to the other inductees that share this honor tonight. When I stepped away from racing 30 years ago, it was my love of racing and history that motivated me to start restoring old race cars. When friends and I retrieved Bruce Elder's number 9 from the woods where it sat for 23 years. Of the 2,000 plus cars built for C-Class over the 10 years that that division existed, number 9 is the only known surviving car. The Tangway V8 car followed, and then Dick McCabe's Zero came along as well. I recalled these cars as a child at Beach Ridge, and I remembered the impact that they had on me. To me, I was simply bringing back a part of my past while saving a piece of racing history, period. It does, however, take a special type of vision to look at a rotted and rusted old hull that's been sitting in the woods for more than 20 years. In 1996, Bruce's car started appearing at car shows, and it was popular. It was the only one doing so. I never gave any thought to the idea that history has a ripple effect. Other cars began to appear. Phil Libby restored his car. Carl Gaines got a car. Alan Brand and Dodo Brockman followed with their restorations. I had 3 cars done and was working on my 4th car, the Dick Garrett number 2, when Maine Vintage Race Car was formed in 2002. More vintage race cars were beginning to emerge as Maine Vintage brought various racing history enthusiasts together with a common purpose. For folks with cars, it was a threshold of sharing info, parts, and resources. For other members, there were many tasks like bylaws, schedules, and more. Former drivers were being recognized once more while the state's racing history was coming together under a unified cause. Car numbers surged at shows, memberships climbed, and within a short time of the club's inception, 2 major events happened, just a couple years from the start. Number one was the annual event, which became Summerfest for vintage race cars at Beach Ridge. And second, a steering committee was launched as a year's drive for the Hall of Fame, a selection committee put together, and this Hall of Fame was established for 2004. In those years following, the club's display at the Race and Preview in Portland at the Expo was so popular, it often took up one entire side of the building. It was becoming a movement with a life of its own. But many of us were just too busy to recognize that. A few of the Summerfest events at Beach Ridge packed in 50 to 60 cars. And some tracks would be happy with that turnout. That's how popular it was. The Wicked Good Racing Club soon appeared on the scene. I continued to add a few more cars to my fleet. Dick Garrett's number 2, CV Camaro J2 replica, a Dick Walston number 6 replica, and the NASCAR modified number 29 of Ernie Gahan. I also helped friends bring to life the Jim Landry number 38 Super, the Bob Libby number 39 Pinto, Dick Haskell's number 15, and the Pure Hell Camaro number 2. It was a ripple effect of history indeed, but sure as heck we didn't see it that way. It was wonderful to see so many historic cars being done. The one-to-one cars notwithstanding through this time, I continued my side hobby of building model race cars, the small-scale replicas of the one we watched each weekend for years past. I never gave out many, strange as it seems, when I was younger, because I didn't think they were any good. But I did get past that, and to that end, I owe thanks to Mario Burnett and Nancy Mero for showing me how much they were appreciated, because at one time I was thinking about throwing them out. Over the years, I've built about 600, and as Gail said, I've given away a couple hundred, maybe more. Across time with that display, I've been told the memories come to life when these are on display, and evidently so. I've gotten an awful lot of funny and sad stories, anecdotes, reflections, smiles, thank yous, and invariably tears of gratitude. Along with the restored cars and my models, the other vital part of this journey has been the people that I've met. 40 years in fire and rescue gave me a unique perspective of the fine line that life can be at times, and an appreciation for the people in it. If you know me, you hear me mention often, it's about the people. You folks sitting here tonight. Behind every driver, every winning race car, there's a car owner, there's a pit crew, their families, and their fans. There's always a large group with each car. And within that collective group of people are a lot of stories. And these stories, they define the character, the color, and the history of the sport. And I have a few that I'd like to share with you. A few years ago, I received an email from Illinois from a lady who lived in southern Maine had gone to Beechridge, her entire family as a child. Their home burned down, and they moved to Illinois. And she had seen the Beechridge Facebook page, and they had lost everything when their home burned. Her dad's car, his racing was never really successful. He was a backmarker. But the family had a wonderful time. They remembered the car. They had no trophies or checkered flags, but one thing they did have on their mantle when she was growing up was a picture of him with his car, which was lost in the fire. So she was reaching out to me and asking me if I knew if that picture might be available or where she could get one. Years ago, when Phil Libby, before he passed away, Phil had purchased the Bob Tatro negatives, and the Libby children had those, and years later had me sort those out for them. And at their behest, they let me be good enough to copy those and catalog them. So I told this lady I would look through the negatives, see what I could find. I found one negative, and I had it scanned, and I sent it to her. And about a half hour later, she called me up in tears, telling me that this was the exact picture that had been on her mantle for all those years. And it was her dad with the race car and the driver, the two of them together with their Beechridge jackets on. And I was thrilled. I said, I mailed her a copy. And I thought to myself for a moment, what's the chances? Almost 30 years later, this lady calls me out of the blue looking for a picture of her past. That's all she had from race car memory, and that Phil Libby managed to get the Tatro negatives, and his children took care of them, had me look at them, catalog them, and sort them, and then I found one, and I sent it to her. Now, what's the chances of something like that? And it's about the people. It's moments like that. In 1968, race car driver Donnie Peterson was leaving the Beechridge banquet and was killed in a car crash on the way home. He had 3 young children under the age of 3. His brother Pete returned with Donnie's number 27 car the following year, raced it, it got crashed and put aside. The following year, the car reappeared as an orange number 1 and raced for 1 year. And then Pete grabbed the car, and the car was lost to time. So fast forward about 30 years later, I'd gone up to see my friends at Tangway's, and they were cleaning out their barn. And they were the ones that had gotten the Rec 27 from Pete Peterson, Donnie's old car, and they had raced it, and they had it last before it disappeared. While they were cleaning out the barn, there was a pile of debris on the side, and on top of that pile was the hood of that number 27 car that I recognized from all those years ago. I recognized it immediately, asked them if I could have it. They said, sure, take it. So I got it home, cleaned it up a little bit, and I reached out to Donnie's boys, Darren and Donald. And almost 40 years later, we returned that hood to his boys. So it was a piece of souvenir of their dad that they never knew. Sometimes one of the things about history is putting something in the right place. In 1999, I was here at the Northeast Motorsports show with a V8 car, and a lady was walking by looking at one of my books, and there was a commotion, and she had fainted on the floor. So we got her up, got her into a chair, got her settled down. Well, she was from New York State, come up here to see some friends, and suggested that possibly they should go to the Northeast show and go see the cars. So as they were doing so, they'd gone down through the aisle, and they stopped to look at one of my scrapbooks. And as she was opening up the scrapbooks, she saw a picture, an 8x10 photo of her dad with Joey Carafas from the Oxford 200, a photo she'd never seen. She fainted. So once we got her back and squared away and made sure she wasn't injured, I did the next best thing I could. I opened the scrapbook up and I gave her the picture. I said, I'll always get one myself, and it's more important to her. It's about the people, and you never know how somebody's life is going to be touched like that. So in 2020, that was the 25th year of number 9, Bruce Elder's car, in its second life now. And I got a call from Paige Woods about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s production company, Dirty Mo Media, wanting to come up here and do an episode on the Arundel Speedway. And they were looking to see if we could provide a car or two. And I said, yes, I could. Matter of fact, I've got a car that won at Arundel and we'll bring it down. And that was Bruce. His first official win of his career came at Arundel in 1969. So we got the car down there, and it was a week of filming. And it was a very low-key event, because in the event that Dale Jr. showed up, they didn't want large crowds there. But we did get the film episode in and done. And it was kind of cool that 25 years later, almost 50 years after Bruce got that first win at Arundel, that we could bring his number 9 down there and feature it in this work. The number 9 has also been featured in an episode of Cruising New England with Paul Minetti on Nessun Network. But back to the Arundel event, that featured 4 cars, a super modified, a late model, a C-Class, and a bomber. And those 4 cars represented the classes that Arundel Speedway ran while it existed in the 10 years it was here. So it was very cool that we could get number 9 out there along with the Jim Landry 38, which was also a 100-lap winner at Arundel. And a couple things that really touched me on that. At one point, it rained all week and it was kind of crappy weather, but we made the best of it. And the film crew set up in turn 2, and they were going to interview Bruce about driving on the track. So they got the cameras and the microphones, everything all set up. Bruce headed out and went over to sit with the camera crew. And as he was leaving, I said, Bruce, I said, all of the C-Class drivers that aren't with us anymore are with you here today. And he did a great job. One of the last things I remember on that Arundel show, it was getting dark, November, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Bruce still had the checkered flag that he got at Arundel and a photo. And they got the car over off turn 4 and they replicated that original photo from 50 years ago and redid it again in 2020 with the film crew while it was there. So it was very cool, and it was it's been a fun journey. Thank you, Bruce. The last one I have, and I'll mention, a few weeks ago, once again, I got a call from Paige, and I ended up speaking with a gentleman who was a contracted employee for, he called it the U.S. government, the United States Commission on Historic Preservation. But it's actually the National Advisory Council on Historic Preservation for the United States. And they are tasked with working with the historic committees of the 50 states to capture the changing landscape of this country, and in particular landmarks of the past that are going away or things of that nature, and capture them for posterity to be recorded. And he was looking for information on Beach Ridge, and Paige recommended me, so we got a chance to meet and talk about the track. And to a degree, a lot of these people in this agency, they're engineers, and their concerns are with the attributes, the physical layout, and the features of whatever it is that they're trying to take care of. Not quite so much the history, so they had questions about the grandstand, the track, the kind of track, concessions, things of that nature. And we discussed that, and then a few months later, he showed up at my home. I got him a bunch of pictures and things that we were able to record, newspaper clippings, some videos, and we went over things that would be put together. So taking it from there, they're going to put together a report that will go to the state of Maine's Historic Commission. And from there, a copy can go either to the Library of Congress or the Smithsonian. So at some point, you know, Beech Ridge will certainly live on to that extent. I never gave a lot of thought that any of this would have carried on as long as it has, nor that interest from a few restored old race cars would mushroom into a group that would manage and put together this worthy event, much less make me a part of it. Some of the credit has and recognition has to go to those old historic race cars that those drivers did with them so much back then. They certainly had a lot of notoriety. I was fortunate to redo and save some cars, build tribute models to remember the folks who got us here. But realistically, it was a way of giving back to the sport, that's all. This journey isn't complete without some thanks. So if you'll permit me, my long-suffering wife, Cindy, and my son, Rob, who put up with me many, many nights. So many times. Thank you. My brother from another mother, Charlie Sheen, my fellow historian. Charlie's, when we first got number 9 to the very first show at Beech Ridge, on a Saturday night, Charlie blasted down with a friend of his, checked out the car, then blasted back to Unity, go see the races there that night, and I realized there was someone as crazy as I was. Thank you, Charlie. Another one on this journey, Stephanie Burgess. And Stephanie is one of those behind the scenes that you never see, but she's certainly done a lot. A few years ago, when this program started taking on water, Stephanie stepped up, steered the ship, and got it through rough seas, and it continues on. And not only that, she works with the Unity Reunion and Unity History. When we needed the Maine chapter put together for the Dick Berggren book, History of Racing in New England, I was going to take care of Beech Ridge. Bob Morris was going to take care of Oxford, but I needed someone for Central Maine and beyond. And I called Steph, and at a short notice, she said yes, and I mean a very short notice. Thank you, Steph. Your dad's proud. Another young lady, and she's picking up where I'm leaving off. If you haven't caught her page on Facebook, the Lost Speedways page, Paige Woods, and she's done a wonderful job and put a lot together. I've cautioned her not to burn herself out. There's a lot out there to do, but she has certainly taken it forward, and you go, girl. Thank you. Mario Bennett and Nancy Marrow from Nan's Racing Collectibles were the ones that told me not to throw my models out, that other people appreciated them, and that certainly came to be. Joe Brown helped me out with race car parts. Bruce Elder, place to work on the car and the car. Over at my table, my brother Tim, a couple of my helpers, Steve Hawks, Bob Eaton, and between the four of us, we have 130 years of service in the Portland Fire Department. Myself notwithstanding, when I look over there are unit citations, medals of valor, and things that were done far above the call of duty with those guys. And I saw times when we were up all night, crawl down smoky hallways, fall through a floor, and at 9 o'clock the next morning we're over welding and cutting and sanding on old race cars. Thank you, guys. George Brockman, when I started on the race cars, came to me and said, whatever you need, put it on my account. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Linda Ferguson and her husband Mark stepped up and helped me out with the number 2 car on that journey, and it's been a wonderful time. Thank you, guys. Bob Tangway, Jeff Watts, Goodwin Hannaford helped me with motors. Wayne True bought me a trailer. So there's so many people in this. So you see, folks, my journey with history wasn't about me, it's about you. And I've learned so many great stories from all of you, and I treasured every one of them like a 250 win. And people tell me I should write a book, but maybe I will. I'm not really sure why you'd honor me when I set out to honor you. But nonetheless, thank you. So my thanks to the selection committee, and I'll humbly accept this award. And last but not least, thank you for the privilege of your time.
So, as the former 7-year-old kid that I used to be, that I touched on a little while ago there, that bought a go-kart that had to have a number 1 on it. Well, my father was a part of that firefighter community. He worked for the Scarborough town on the fire department there, and as a 7-year-old kid, a lot of things kind of just happen that you don't really think about. You know, my dad taught me how to put, go-karts together, put the tires on, how to paint it, how to apply the decals. But what many don't know is that the very first handful of go-karts that I had, the letters came from that man right there, Steve Pellerin. And those go-kart bodies still live on today in my backyard, which Lindsay is super pumped about. So, moving on, I do need to remind you all that we do have a 50-50 going on too. I don't know where it is or how much it is, but if you see, they're in the back corner there. If you haven't bought a 50-50 ticket yet, do it, just because I said so, and I'm a bully. Secondly, couple quick reminders here before we wrap the show up. Just a reminder to every single current, past, and now present Maine Motorsports Hall of Famer. We do want you to stay here at the end of the show for a group photo. That is very important. If that doesn't happen, they will yell at me specifically, so don't let that happen for me. Lastly, just a quick reminder too, a week from tomorrow, November 9th at 2 p.m., I assume it's in the Gray Public Library still, is going to be the annual Maine Vintage Race Car Association meeting, where all sorts of cool things will be happening, where I do believe you're going to be hearing the next group of inductees, orders of business and things moving forward for 2026 and beyond. Now, to wrap up the show here, I am going to get you Hall of Fame inductee number 6 on the evening. So please put your hands together to induct Mark Wentworth onto the stage, the one and only Dick McCabe.
Good evening. I want to thank these people for putting this on. Give me a chance to honor my nephew. As you know, I'm Dick McCabe. I used to race stock cars. I've been asked to introduce my nephew, Mark Wentworth, to the Hall of Fame. The way we get started together, my sister Carol dropped him up to my garage when he was about 12 years old. We were working on the race car. And it became a regular thing. My sister was working or stopping off to see my wife Roseanne. He started out with small jobs like sorting out the nuts and bolts, sweeping the floor, cleaning the clay and oil off the race car. As time went on, he would help with the maintenance, packing of the wheel bearings, tending to the brakes. As he got older, he started helping with the setup, assisting with the rear end, checking the clutch, adjusting the valves. Thanks to him, one of the biggest races I won, the Oxford 250, the initial call was made to put 2 tires on.
But we were so far back on the racetrack, Mac come on the radio and said, we'll put 2 more on. So I went back in, put the 2 tires on, and in my opinion, that was the singular reason we won the 250. Mark was responsible for the wheel bearings and the brakes, and I have to say during my whole career, we never had a DNF because of the wheel bearings or the brakes. Thank you, Mark. The way he worked with the crew, he led by example. Mark worked as hard, if not harder, than any of them. I've known Mark his whole life. He's the kind of guy everyone wants to employ. He's always worked hard until the job was done. And by the crew, he was known as the sanest one on the crew. A lot of times, I would be absent during the week on the road, hauling fish or timber, and Mark ran the shop and got everything done. He got it all done on time. And when I drove other people's cars, he helped me then too. We were glad to have him. They were glad to have him. Mark was pretty unflappable, pretty laid back. He got along with all officials, pre and post race inspection. In general, I like the car a little bit loose. Mark always tightened me up a little bit. I was one to have the right rear a little harder than the right front. But he kept me straight. We went through 4 championships together. One race down to Thompson, Connecticut, we were struggling. The handle of the car was off. It was a long day, very hot day. We had a cooler out in the infield. I wanted something to drink. He opened the cooler, handed me a chocolate milk. I took 1 gulp. I realized it was sour. The comment on the radio was after that, if you were trying to piss me off, it worked. We spent a lot of miles together, and he'd never go to sleep when I was driving. The rest of the crew would be sleeping. The word responsibility describes him to a T. Our crew, through all the hard work and long hours, we always had a lot of fun. In closing, let me say my racing career would not have been the same without Mark. Thank you for everything. What's that? Yeah. Huh? Over to this side.
Wow, I'm a little overwhelmed. I need to take a minute. And few people know I have my grandkids here tonight, Evan and Jacob. And I'm going to point out their excellent behavior all night. Can you guys stand up? Stand up. Thank you. I am honored to be here tonight as the recipient of this award. Thank you, Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame, for this honorable recognition. Thank you, Dick, for that wonderful introduction and for postponing a return to Florida. When Dick gave me this opportunity, I was young and green and not up to the task. I remember one night at Star Speedway hearing the term Kmart mechanic. That wasn't a compliment. One day at Martinsville, we learned how far you can run before you have to pit for gas. Turns out it's 130 laps. But as time passed and the laps piled up, we made progress. Dick and I had many battles about whether the car was too tight or not. Turns out I lost most of those battles. But when that green number 0 showed up anywhere from Daytona to Nova Scotia, the racing community knew we meant business. Dick's record of feature wins and championships proved that. Nobody will ever forget the 1992 final race at Star Speedway, figuring out we had a flat tire late, pitting, and Dick having to fly up through the pack.
And it's obvious, Joe, that you do remember that. I am standing here tonight due to the effort and dedication of many people who I would like to thank. Ray Jansen, David Staples, Mike D'Amico, Ray Labby, Kevin Wood, Roger Sandberg, Billy Bath, Bobby Stewart, Malcolm Graffam, Don Crispin, and James Wentworth. These guys were always willing to work hard and never miss an after party. I'm still not sure which they were better at. Thank you to my dad, Sherman, our unofficial team ambassador, and my mom, Carol, who scored the car. Special thanks to my wife, who stood by me through long nights and weekends away from home. Thank you to all my family who are here tonight, especially my Uncle Dick, who supported me, my family, and made that time of my life something I will never forget. A heartfelt thank you to my Aunt Roseanne. She always kept us fed and the coolers stocked on those long race weekends. For sure, we did not go hungry or thirsty. She was the glue that held our team together and made everyone feel like family. I will always look back fondly on our team, everything we accomplished, and the memories we created. Congratulations to the other inductees. Thank you. Instructions on this, didn't we?
All right, folks. It is the end of the evening, and I think that further wraps up, again, my key term of the night, badass. Congratulations to the 2025 Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame inductees. Congratulations to all of those of you who are already in. And congratulations to a handful of you that will realize you are going to be a part of Immortality in about a week's time.